What if I told you that the most critical flaw in the modern survival strategy isn't a lack of food, water, or ammunition, but a blind, dangerous dependence on a fragile medical grid? We prep our pantries and fortify our homes. Yet the moment a serious infection sets in, we assume we can just run down to the local pharmacy for a course of antibiotics. But what happens when the pharmacies are looted, the supply chains collapse, and the doctors are gone? Most people don't know this. But before the pharmaceutical industry locked medicine behind glass counters, our ancestors survived brutal conditions using powerful, natural antibiotics growing right under their feet. And modern science is finally proving that these wild, uncultivated plants have genuine, measurable clinical efficacy. Today I am going to show you 20 wild weeds that can act as natural antibiotics and antiseptics when you are entirely off-grid. Stick around, because number 16 on this list was literally used on Civil War battlefields to save limbs from amputation when supplies ran dry. And number 20 is a common backyard weed that acts as such a powerful natural painkiller, you'll wonder why you ever bought over-the-counter medicine. Let's get into it. Number 1. Yarrow, the soldier's woundwort. We start with a plant whose botanical name, Achillea millefolium, is named after the Greek hero Achilles, who supposedly used it to stop the bleeding of his soldiers. For centuries, from the Roman legions to Native American warriors, yarrow was the ultimate battlefield medicine, carried in pouches to treat severe lacerations and prevent gangrene. Modern clinical analysis validates this ancient practice. Yarrow contains a staggering array of active compounds, including achillene, which actively promotes blood clotting, and a high concentration of tannins and flavonoids that give it profound, broad-spectrum antibacterial properties against staph and strep bacteria. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario when dealing with a deep, dirty wound in the field. You take the fresh leaves and flowers, crush them between rocks, or chew them to release the active juices, and pack this poultice directly into the wound before wrapping it. The bleeding will slow, and the antimicrobial compounds will immediately start neutralizing pathogens. We paved over yarrow to build pharmacies and manicured lawns, dismissing it as an invasive weed, completely forgetting that it is a highly evolved, life-saving trauma kit disguised as a flower. Number 2. Broadleaf Plantain, nature's Band-Aid. Do not confuse this with the banana-like fruit. Plantago major is a low-lying green weed that European pioneers brought to the Americas, and native tribes quickly dubbed it white man's footprint because it grew wherever they walked. Historically, it was the absolute first line of defense for drawing out infections, venom, and foreign objects from the skin. Scientifically, plantain is a powerhouse. It contains allantoin, a compound that aggressively stimulates cellular growth and tissue regeneration, alongside aucubin, which provides scientifically documented antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory action that prevents localized infections from spreading. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you have a festering wound, a spider bite, or an embedded splinter that is turning red and hot, you create a spit poultice by thoroughly chewing the ribbed leaves and applying the green mash directly to the infection. It acts as a drawing agent, pulling the infection out while simultaneously delivering antibacterial compounds to the site. Modern society forgot plantain because we became obsessed with synthetic hydrocortisone and antibiotic ointments in plastic tubes, ignoring the fact that nature provides a superior drawing salve that grows entirely for free in the cracks of our sidewalks. Number 3. Usnea, the old man's beard. Look up into the damp canopies of old-growth forests, and you will see Usnea hanging from the branches like pale green hair. For generations, indigenous healers and early frontiersmen used this lichen to treat severe upper respiratory infections and stubborn wounds that refused to heal. Modern science has isolated the magic within this lichen, usnic acid. This is a potent, naturally occurring antibiotic that has been clinically shown to be highly effective against gram-positive bacteria, including the dreaded MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, and the bacteria responsible for strep throat and tuberculosis. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. For an external wound, you can apply the raw, damp lichen directly as an antimicrobial dressing. For internal infections like bronchitis or strep, you must extract the usnic acid by making a strong double extraction tincture using high-proof alcohol and hot water, taking it drop by drop to kill the infection without destroying your healthy gut flora. We forgot about Usnea because we started mass-producing penicillin in factories, abandoning a wild-growing antibiotic that mutates alongside bacteria, making it much harder for pathogens to build resistance to it. Number 4. Pine resin, the forest sealant. Every survivalist knows pine trees offer wood and shelter, but the sticky, highly flammable pitch that oozes from a damaged pine tree is one of the most critical survival medicines in the woods. Early pioneers and indigenous tribes didn't have liquid bandages as surgical glue. They used melted pine pitch to seal deep gashes and prevent deadly infections in the deep wilderness. Scientific analysis reveals that pine resin is loaded with terpenes and complex phenolic compounds that are fiercely antibacterial, antifungal, and naturally waterproof. It creates a completely sterile, impermeable barrier over exposed flesh. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you suffer a severe cut while chopping wood, you gather fresh, sticky pine pitch, warm it slightly so it becomes pliable, and smear it directly over the cleaned wound. It will sting, but it will instantly glue the edges of the cut together and form a hard, antimicrobial cast that keeps dirt and bacteria out for days. We forgot about pine resin because we replaced it with synthetic surgical cyanoacrylate, tossing aside an ancient natural barrier that both physically seals and chemically disinfects severe trauma. Number 5. Goldenseal, the root of defense. Native to the deep woods of North America, the bright yellow root of the goldenseal plant, Hydrastes canadensis, was fiercely prized by the Cherokee and Iroquois tribes as a cure-all for systemic infections, digestive parasites, and infected eyes. When modern pharmacology finally put goldenseal under the microscope, they found it is incredibly rich in berberine and hydrastine. Berberine is a brutally effective antimicrobial alkaloid that has been clinically proven to kill a massive spectrum of bacteria, fungi, and parasites by disrupting their cellular metabolism. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you drink contaminated water and contract a severe gastrointestinal infection, or if you have an infected weeping wound, you dry and powder the yellow root. You can pack the dry powder directly onto the infection or brew a very bitter, strong tea to flush parasites and bacteria from your digestive tract. Modern medicine largely forgot goldenseal and drove it to mere extinction through overharvesting because we synthesized targeted antibiotics, ignoring this natural, broad-spectrum defender that kept early Americans alive through cholera and dysentery outbreaks. Number 6. Echinacea, the immune armor. Also known as the purple coneflower, Echinacea was the most widely used medicinal plant by the Plains Indians, who used the numbing roots to treat everything from rattlesnake bites to blood poisoning and septic wounds. Today, scientific validation is overwhelming. Echinacea doesn't just kill bacteria directly. It contains complex polysaccharides, alkamides, and caffeic acid derivatives that cause an explosion of white blood cell production and increase phagocytosis, meaning it commands your own immune system to aggressively hunt down and consume invading bacteria and viruses. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. When you feel the very first sign of a severe infection, a fever, or an infected wound turning septic, you dig up the roots of a mature echinacea plant, clean them, and chew them slowly. Your mouth will go numb and tingle. That is the active alkamides working. You swallow the juices to flood your bloodstream with immune-stimulating compounds. We forgot Echinacea's true power because the supplement industry watered it down into weak, sugary gummies for mild colds, stripping away its fierce, historical reputation as a heavy-hitting treatment for blood poisoning. Number 7. Oregon grapefruit, the Western antibiotic. When pioneers crossed the Rocky Mountains, they suffered from terrible waterborne illnesses, giardia, and infected wounds. They learned from indigenous tribes to harvest the bright yellow inner bark and roots of the Oregon grape, Mahonia aquifolium. Just like goldenseal, the scientific secret of Oregon grape is a massive concentration of the alkaloid berberine. Clinical studies demonstrate that berberine inhibits the ability of bacteria to attach to human cells and prevents them from forming protective biofilms, making it incredibly effective against resilient staph infections and severe digestive pathogens. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If your camp is hit by a wave of severe bacterial dysentery from bad water, you harvest the roots, scrape off the inner yellow bark, and boil it aggressively to create a strong decoction. Drinking this intensely bitter liquid acts as an internal antibiotic sweep, clearing the gastrointestinal tract of hostile bacteria. We forgot Oregon grape because we built modern municipal water treatment plants, leaving this powerful biofilm-busting root to be viewed as nothing more than a prickly ornamental landscaping bush. Number 8. Garlic mustard. The forager's penicillin garlic mustard, Olearia petiolata, is currently despised by ecologists as a highly invasive weed that chokes out native forest floors. But historically, it was brought to North America by European settlers intentionally, planted as a crucial medicinal food crop to survive the brutal winters without access to doctors. Science shows us why. The plant contains high levels of allyl isothiocyanate and sinegrin, powerful sulfur-based compounds that give it its garlic smell and possess potent antibacterial and antifungal properties, specifically against respiratory and digestive pathogens. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario. In a survival situation where a chest cold is turning into bacterial pneumonia, you forage the first-year rosettes or second-year leaves. Crush them heavily to activate the sulfur compounds and eat them raw, or steep them in warm, not boiling, water. The volatile oils will penetrate your respiratory system and act as an antimicrobial expectorant. We forgot garlic mustard because we started importing winter vegetables and synthetic cough syrups, turning a crucial cold weather survival medicine into public enemy number 1 for gardeners. If you're starting to see the pattern here, then you are already waking up. True independence, true off-grid survival isn't just about stockpiling canned beans and buying solar panels. It is about knowledge. It is about understanding that the earth provided a complete, resilient pharmacy long before corporations decided to bottle it and sell it back to us. If you want to continue reclaiming this lost knowledge and mastering the skills of self-reliance, hit the like button right now and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get back to the list. Number 9. Mullein, the lung sweeper. You have likely seen Mullein verbascum thapsus, a towering stalk with fuzzy, velvet-like leaves growing in disturbed soil along highways. Native Americans and early settlers smoked the leaves and drank the tea to treat tuberculosis, asthma, and severe bacterial bronchitis. Modern pharmacological studies confirm that mullein leaves contain high levels of mucilage, which soothes inflamed tissues alongside saponins that act as a powerful expectorant, and verbascoside, which has proven antimicrobial activity against respiratory pathogens. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If a member of your camp has a deep, rattling, wet cough that threatens to turn into a life-threatening bacterial lung infection, you harvest the large, fuzzy leaves, dry them, and brew a hot tea. You must strain the tea through a cloth to remove the irritating microscopic hairs. Drinking this will break up the infected mucus and deliver antimicrobial compounds directly to the lungs. We forgot mullein because we rely on synthetic inhalers and prescription expectorants, walking right past the towering lung sweepers that grow in the poorest, driest dirt imaginable. Number 10. Comfrey. The cell multiplier, Symphytum officinale, was so prized by ancient Greek physicians and medieval battlefield medics that they literally called it knit bone. It was used to heal severe lacerations, severe burns, and even set broken bones. The scientific validation for Comfrey is spectacular. It contains massive amounts of allantoin more than plantain. Allantoin accelerates cell mitosis, meaning it literally forces your body's cells to divide and multiply at a hyper-accelerated rate, rapidly closing wounds to prevent bacterial entry. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you suffer a severe, gaping flesh wound that you cannot stitch, you thoroughly clean the wound, crush fresh comfrey leaves into a dark green paste, and pack it around the injury. It will force the tissue to regenerate and close the gap faster than your body naturally could, sealing out infection. We forgot comfrey because the FDA warned against its internal use, causing people to abandon it entirely, forgetting that as a topical trauma medicine, it is virtually unmatched in the natural world. Number 11. St. John's wort. Most people today know St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum, as a natural supplement for mild depression, but the ancient Spartans and crusading knights used it for a much more visceral purpose, treating deep puncture wounds, sword thrusts, and severe nerve damage. When you crush the yellow flowers, they bleed a deep red oil. Modern science shows this oil contains hyperforin and hypericin, compounds with incredibly strong antibacterial properties, particularly against gram-positive bacteria, while actively repairing damaged nerve tissue. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. To prepare for off-grid emergencies, you must harvest the yellow flowers in midsummer, pack them in a jar, and cover them in olive oil. Leave it in the sun for a month until the oil turns blood red. If you step on a rusty nail or suffer a deep puncture wound in the woods, you flush the wound with this red oil. It will fight the anaerobic bacteria deep in the puncture and soothe the screaming nerve. We forgot this use because we pigeonholed it as a mood enhancer, completely ignoring its bloody history as the ultimate battlefield antiseptic for deep tissue trauma. Number 12. Calendula, the skin mender. During the American Civil War and World War I, when medical supplies were non-existent, doctors on the front lines demanded that citizens grow calendula and ship the dried flowers to the medics to treat the horrific infections sweeping through the trenches. Clinical research confirms that calendula flowers are packed with triterpenoids, flavonoids, and volatile oils that exhibit strong antimicrobial, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory properties, while dramatically stimulating the production of collagen at wound sites. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. For severe road rash, burns, or widespread superficial infections, you boil the dried bright orange and yellow flowers to make a strong wash. You aggressively flush the infected area with this wash multiple times a day. It physically destroys surface bacteria while speeding up the cellular repair of the skin. We forgot calendula because we view marigolds merely as pretty garden border plants to keep bugs away, forgetting that armies once relied on them to stop gangrene in its tracks. Number 13. Boneset. The fever breaker boneset, Eupatorium perfoliatum, was a staple of Native American medicine and was arguably the most utilized plant in early America during devastating epidemics of influenza, breakbone fever, dengue. The scientific reality of boneset is found in its sesquiterpene lactones and immune-stimulating polysaccharides. While not a direct antibiotic that kills bacteria on contact, it is a profound diaphoretic and immunostimulant. It rapidly raises the body's internal temperature, inducing a massive sweating fever that literally cooks viral and bacterial infections out of the body. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. When an off-grid infection has set in and the patient is shivering with a dangerous chill, you brew a hot, incredibly bitter tea from the dried leaves and flowers. You force the patient to drink it hot, wrap them in heavy blankets, and let the plant induce a heavy sweat to break the fever and flush the pathogens. We forgot boneset because modern medicine is obsessed with suppressing fevers with Tylenol, forgetting that a controlled fever is the body's most lethal weapon against systemic infection. Number 14. Wild thyme, the plague repellent. During the Black Death in Europe, grave robbers and plague doctors wore masks stuffed with thyme to prevent contracting the deadly bacterial infection. They were onto something real. Wild thymus. Thymus serpulum contains thymol and carvacrol. Modern laboratory tests show that thymol is one of the most powerful broad-spectrum naturobiocides on Earth. It destroys the cell walls of bacteria, fungi, and viruses on contact. It is so effective that it is the active ingredient in many modern hospital-grade botanical disinfectants. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If your living environment is contaminated or you have a severe skin infection, you boil a massive handful of wild thyme to create an antiseptic wash. Use it to clean medical instruments, wash infected skin, and if a respiratory infection strikes, you inhale the hot steam directly into your lungs to let the volatile thymol oils kill the bacteria in your airways. We forgot wild thyme's power because we relegated it to the spice rack for roasting chicken, ignoring that it is literally a weapon of mass destruction against microbial life. Number 15. Sweet Annie, the parasite purge. Sweet Annie, Artemisia annua is a powerfully aromatic weed that has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years to treat severe fevers and malaria. In the 1970s, scientists validated this ancient knowledge by extracting artemisinin from the plant, a compound so effective at destroying the malaria parasite that the researcher who discovered it won the Nobel Prize. Beyond malaria, it is a fierce antimicrobial against a variety of off-grid intestinal pathogens. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you are in a humid, mosquito-heavy environment and contract a severe, cyclical fever or ingest a dangerous waterborne parasite, you make a cold water infusion or a tea from the dried leaves. The artemisinin attacks the iron-rich parasites and bacteria in your blood and gut, neutralizing them. We forgot Sweet Annie because it grows wild in abandoned lots and ditches, completely overlooked by a society that waits for the World Health Organization to distribute anti-malarial pills. Number 16. Sphagnum Moss, the Civil War sponge. Here is the plant I promised you. During the bloodiest battles of the American Civil War and later in the muddy trenches of World War I, cotton bandages ran out. Surgeons turned in desperation to sphagnum moss, packing the gaping wounds of soldiers with it. To their shock, the soldiers treated with moss had vastly higher survival rates and far less gangrene than those treated with cotton. Science now explains the miracle. Sphagnum moss is incredibly absorbent, but more importantly, it is highly acidic and contains sphagnum, a unique polymer that literally binds to bacteria and starves them of nutrients while lowering the pH of the wound to a level where bacteria simply cannot survive. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you are in the deep woods and suffer a massive bleeding trauma, you harvest clean, wet sphagnum moss from a bog, squeeze out the excess water, and pack it directly into the gaping wound. It acts as an antibacterial sponge, absorbing blood while actively creating a hostile, acidic environment that prevents gangrene. We forgot sphagnum moss because we mass-produce sterile gauze, leaving behind a wild-growing surgical dressing that actively fights infection. Number 17. Chaparral, the Desert Defender. If you're surviving in the arid deserts of the American Southwest, chaparral, or the creosote bush, Larrea tridentata, is your primary medical lifeline. Native tribes used it to treat venomous bites, tuberculosis, and severe skin infections. The science behind chaparral is intense. It is coated in a sticky resin containing NDGA, nordohydroguairetic acid, an extraordinarily potent antioxidant and antimicrobial compound that halts cellular mutation and utterly destroys bacteria, fungi, and viruses that try to establish themselves on the skin. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. For severe fungal infections, ringworm, or bacterial skin conditions that thrive in dirty, sweaty off-grid conditions. You harvest the sticky leaves and boil them to create a dark, intensely smelling wash. You apply this wash externally. It is too harsh on the liver for long-term internal use. We forgot chaparral because the FDA banned it from supplements due to liver toxicity concerns when ingested, ignoring its legendary status as an invincible topical desert antiseptic. Number 18. Osha Root, the bear medicine native to the high elevations of the Rocky Mountains. Osha, the Gusticum porteri, is known as bear medicine because indigenous tribes observed brown bears digging up the roots and chewing them to ward off infections after emerging from hibernation. Modern science validates the bear's instinct. Osha root is loaded with volatile oils, lactones, and saponins that exhibit powerful antiviral and antibacterial properties, particularly targeting the lungs and throat by increasing blood circulation to the alveoli. Here is how you use it in an off-grid scenario. If you are at a high altitude or surviving a brutal winter and develop a deep, bacterial chest infection that makes breathing difficult, you chew a small piece of the dried, intensely spicy root or brew it into a strong tea. It will immediately open your airways, numb your sore throat, and deliver antimicrobial compounds directly to the respiratory system. We forgot Osha because it is difficult to cultivate and only grows wild in the high mountains, leaving it out of commercial supply chains and abandoning it to the true mountain survivalists. Number 19. Black Walnut, the Hull Healer. The towering black walnut tree, Juglans nigra, drops heavy green spheres in the fall. Early settlers and Native Americans didn't just eat the nuts, they used the thick green hulls as an aggressive medicine to treat severe parasitic infections, ringworm, and bacterial dysentery. The scientific secret is jubloni, an incredibly toxic compound of fungi, parasites, and bacteria, combined with a massive dose of astringent tannins that tighten tissues and starve infections. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario when dealing with severe fungal skin infections or intestinal parasites from eating undercooked wild game. You harvest the green hulls before they turn black. You soak them in alcohol or water to extract the juglone, creating a dark staining tincture. Applied topically, it obliterates fungal infections. Taken internally in very small, measured drops, it creates a hostile environment that flushes parasites. We forgot black walnut hulls because they stain your hands black for weeks and are a hassle to process, preferring instead the sterile convenience of a pharmacy pill. Number 20, wild lettuce, the backyard painkiller. And finally, number 20. If you are dealing with a severe infection, a broken bone, or a deep wound off-grid, the pain can send you into shock before the bacteria even takes hold. Wild lettuce, Lactuca virosa or Lactuca cereola, is a common prickly weed that looks like a tall dandelion. For centuries it was known as opium lettuce, used by surgeons in the 19th century when real opium was unavailable. Science confirms that the milky white sap inside the stem contains lactucarium. While it contains no actual opiates, lactucarium acts directly on the central nervous system, providing profound analgesic, pain-relieving, and sedative effects without the addictive properties of opioids. Here's how you use it in an off-grid scenario. When a member of your camp is in excruciating pain from an injury or severe infection, you score the stems of the mature plant, collect the white milky sap as it bleeds out, and let it dry into a sticky brown resin. A small piece of this resin, smoked or dissolved in a hot tea, will rapidly dull severe pain, calm the nervous system, and allow the patient to sleep and heal. We paved over wild lettuce to spray weed killer on our driveways, completely oblivious to the fact that we were destroying a powerful, natural painkiller that could make the difference between enduring a crisis and dying of shock. True survival is not just about hoarding supplies until they run out. It is about integrating with the environment around you. It is about realizing that the woods, the deserts, and even the cracks in your driveway are part of a massive, ancient medical grid that never loses power and never runs out of stock. If you can identify these 20 plants, you carry a pharmacy in your mind that no one can ever take away from you. Now, I want to hear from the community. Look out your window right now. Which of these 20 wild medicines is already growing in your yard? Are you going to go forage for plantain, or are you looking for wild lettuce? Drop your answers in the comments below. I read every single one. Stay safe, stay wild, and keep your roots deep. I'll see you in the next video.